Anthony Davis, but he was the second best player on the championship team. When Luka wins the championship, by the way, he just led them to the finals last year. It's been all NBA 5 times. He's going to be the best player on the championship team. So to me, it seems like they didn't want to pay Luka.
I'm going to go with an easy one for me.
Yeah.
And this, hopefully this is non-controversial, but he was my teammate, and he's also one of the best players in the world. And to coach in the NBA, you need one of the best players in the world. It's Luka.
Just the excitement of being able to add a caliber player like that, a generational talent like that to our franchise, is something that's given me energy.
The NBA has seen its fair share of blockbuster trades, moves that shift power and reshape franchises overnight. But this was something different. When Luka Dončić was traded from the Dallas Mavericks to the Los Angeles Lakers, it wasn't just a jaw-dropping transaction. It was a seismic shift that no one saw coming. One of the league's most electrifying young stars, a generational talent, suddenly sent packing. Even weeks later, the shock still lingers, and instead of fading, the debate has only intensified. At first, everyone was asking the same question: why? What could possibly push Dallas to part ways with their franchise cornerstone? Was there behind-the-scenes tension? A rift over Luka's role? Or was there something even bigger, something deeper, driving this decision? Speculation ran wild. Was this purely a basketball move? Or was it about power, politics, and control? The theories kept stacking up, but as time passed, the conversation took a sharp turn. It was no longer just about why Luka was traded. It became about how he was treated. In the aftermath, the Mavericks front office didn't just move on from their superstar. They seemed determined to justify it. Reports surfaced questioning Luka's fitness, leadership, and attitude. The message? Maybe trading him wasn't such a bad idea after all. But not everyone was buying it. Former players, NBA legends, and even Luka's ex-teammates stepped in to defend him, shutting down the criticism and calling out Dallas for how they handled the situation. This wasn't just a shocking trade anymore, it was a battle over the truth. And one person who didn't hold back? Matt Barnes. Known for his no-nonsense approach both on and off the court, Barnes unleashed one of the most ruthless takedowns of an NBA front office in recent memory. In a fiery podcast rant, he went straight for the top, calling out the Mavericks' leadership in a way few others would dare. Today, we're diving into the biggest reactions from players, analysts, and insiders who aren't letting this story slide. From bold call-outs to raw reality checks, one thing is clear: Luka Dončić's name won't be tarnished without a fight. Because love him or hate him, greatness speaks for itself.
Mr. Dumont, take a step back, take a seat. You know nothing about hard work or what it takes to be great. You married into money. Sit with this trade that you made. Hopefully Anthony Davis gets healthy, and I wish Dallas Mavericks the best moving forward. But shut the up, man. We all know how good Luka is. We don't give a what you have to say. Just sit back and be on it.
Matt Barnes didn't just criticize the Mavericks' decision. He tore it apart. He painted a brutal picture of an out-of-touch billionaire who inherited power but lacked the vision to build a championship team. And let's be honest, he's far from the only one who thinks that. From the moment Luka Dončić was traded, fans, players, and analysts have been left speechless, wondering how Dallas could possibly justify moving on from a 25-year-old generational superstar. But instead of owning their decision, the organization doubled down on a different strategy: damage control. Reports suddenly surfaced about Luka's conditioning, his leadership, his supposed shortcomings, as if the Mavericks needed to convince the world they had made the right move. And that's exactly the kind of thing that infuriates former players like Barnes. If there's one thing NBA veterans can't stand, it's when front offices disrespect greatness. Luka didn't just get traded, he got scapegoated. And if the Mavericks thought they could spin the narrative and walk away unscathed, Matt Barnes made sure that wasn't happening. But Barnes wasn't the only one calling them out. Enter Paul Pierce. For the Celtics legend, this move wasn't about basketball, It was about ego. On a recent podcast, Pierce didn't mince words, openly questioning how Dallas could turn its back on its entire future. To him, this wasn't just a bad trade. It was a betrayal, and with voices like his and Barnes leading the charge, the Mavericks front office isn't escaping this storm anytime soon.
Man, it's just like, it's some egos that got involved in all of this. Like, you traded the whole future, the whole face, the whole city was on his back, and you just said, we don't need you. Like, seriously? This is one of the most unprecedented things I've ever seen. Like, where do they go if they don't make the playoffs? Because they made this trade thinking like right now.
Paul Pierce is asking the tough questions, the ones Dallas doesn't want to answer. The Mavericks didn't just trade Luka Dončić, they gambled their entire future on this move, working immediately. No rebuild, no safety. Net, just an all-in bet with zero guarantees. But why? That's where Pierce's theory gets interesting. He believes this wasn't just about basketball. It was about control. Someone high up in the Mavericks hierarchy, whether in the front, office, or ownership, wanted to prove a point. Was Luka gaining too much influence? Was there growing friction behind closed doors? Did the organization make this move just to reassert its authority? Because let's be real, you don't trade a player like Luka unless there's more happening behind the scenes. And now, if Dallas misses the playoffs, this isn't just a bad trade, it's a full-blown disaster. And speaking of catastrophic decisions, Jalen Rose had plenty to say, especially when it came to the financial side of this mess. Rose has seen his fair share of questionable trades, but when he analyzed this one, he saw something even worse. A franchise unwilling to commit to greatness. In a heated televised debate, he didn't hold back, calling out the Mavericks for failing to recognize what they had and making a move that could haunt them for years. Because in the NBA, superstars don't come around often, and when you trade one away, you better be sure you know what you're doing. Right now, it looks like Dallas had no clue.
To me, it seems like they didn't want to pay Luka. So for me, if you don't want to pay Luka, then just sell the team. That's how I feel about it. Because if you ain't going to pay somebody to accomplish what he's accomplished already, I don't know where the money going to come from somebody else.
Jalen Rose didn't just criticize the Luka Dončić trade. He questioned the entire direction of the Mavericks franchise. Because let's be real, if you're not willing to pay for a once-in-a-generation talent, what exactly is the plan? This isn't some borderline all-star. This isn't a player with an uncertain future. This is Luka Dončić, one of the most dominant young superstars the NBA has seen in decades. And instead of building around him and locking in their future, the Mavericks let him walk. For what? To save money? To dodge a supermax contract? That's not just a bad decision. It's a franchise-altering failure. Because now, Dallas isn't just scrambling to replace Luka's production. They're scrambling to justify to their fans why they refuse to invest in one of the most valuable players in the league. And as Rose put it bluntly, if you're not willing to pay for a superstar like Luka, maybe you shouldn't own a team in the first place. When you've been around the NBA as long as Avery Johnson, you've seen every kind of trade, some brilliant, some questionable, and some that defy all logic. And for Johnson, Luka's trade falls firmly in that last category. The former NBA champion, coach, and analyst took to social media to express his complete disbelief, struggling to comprehend how the Mavericks could justify letting go of a generational talent like Luka. Because at the end of the day, there are certain moves you just don't make, and trading Luka Dončić might go down as one of the worst in NBA history.
No way. No way. No way. Now, Luka's 25 years old, and sure, there's been some situations defensively where he can improve. Obviously the communication onslaught with the referees, but this type of talent doesn't come around that many times in a lifetime.
That last point? That's the key. Talent like Luka Dončić doesn't come around often. Avery Johnson's reaction goes straight to the heart of the debate. Luka isn't just an all-star. He's not just a superstar. He's a once-in-a-generation player. The kind of talent you build around for 15 years, not trade away at 25. Sure, Luka has flaws. His defense isn't elite. His relationship with referees can be frustrating. But if those are the reasons you're moving on from a player of his caliber, maybe the problem isn't Luka. Maybe it's you. Because what happens if Luka elevates even further in Los Angeles? What if he reaches an MVP level? What if the Mavericks just threw away their best shot at a championship because they focused on his weaknesses instead of his greatness? Avery Johnson knows what it takes to win at the highest level, and from his perspective, Dallas just made one of the biggest mistakes in NBA history. But while Johnson zeroed in on the basketball disaster, another former Mavericks insider took aim at something deeper: the people making the decisions. If anyone understands the inner workings of the Mavericks organization, it's Bob Voulgaris. A former Mavs executive, sports bettor, and analytics guru, Voulgaris spent years behind the scenes watching firsthand how the franchise operated. And when the criticism of Luka suddenly ramped up after the trade, he wasn't buying it. In a scathing podcast episode, he called out everyone trying to discredit Luka's legacy. Because to him, this wasn't just about moving on from a superstar. It was about a franchise trying to rewrite history to justify one of the most puzzling trades the league has ever seen. And if there's one thing that's becoming clearer by the day, it's this: the Mavericks might have lost way more than just Luka Dončić.
The people who are critiquing him had no business. I'm sorry, but those people have not accomplished anything. They're not accomplished individuals. Who are they to be talking about what it takes to win? That's the part that I found really, really offensive. What have you done in your life that allows you to, yeah, okay, you're in charge of the team and so you're beholden to that. But also, come on, give me a break. What have you inherited a pretty good roster. You inherited a generational superstar. Have a little bit more humility.
This wasn't just a defense of Luka. This was a direct attack on the Mavericks front office. Bob Voulgaris didn't hold back. He called out the decision-makers for pretending they were the architects of Luka's success, when, in reality, they got lucky, and he's got a point. Luka wasn't the first overall pick. The Mavericks didn't mold him into a superstar. From the moment he stepped into the league, he was him. Yet now, after shipping him off, these same executives are trying to rewrite history, acting like Luka wasn't good enough or didn't fit their vision. To Voulgaris, that's not just wrong. It's offensive. Because if you inherit a future Hall of Famer and still fail to build a championship team around him, maybe the problem isn't the player. Maybe it's you. If there's one person in the NBA who's never afraid to speak his mind, it's Shaquille O'Neal. The four-time champion, Hall of Famer, and larger-than-life personality has seen it all. Bad trades, front office disasters, and teams fumbling generational talent. And when he saw Luka Dončić get traded, Shaq wasn't buying it. In a recent interview, he put the Mavericks front office on blast, demanding real answers for a move that still doesn't make sense. Because when a trade is this shocking, there are only two possibilities. It's either genius, or it's one of the worst mistakes in NBA history. And right now, it's looking like the latter.
And the treachery of the business of basketball, which people just come out and say. I want Nico to say, this is why we trade him. Nobody's really giving an answer. We want to know. Dirk wants to know. Mark Cuban wants to know. All of Dallas wants to know why you trade one of the best players in the league.
And that's the problem. Nobody really knows why this happened. The Mavericks haven't given a clear, honest explanation for trading away one of the most dominant young stars in NBA history. Instead, they've dodged questions, thrown out vague statements, and let rumors run wild. But here's the thing. Shaq, and just about everyone else, aren't buying it because, let's be real, if Dallas had a legitimate reason, wouldn't they have said it by now? Shaq's frustration reflects what every fan, analyst, and even former Mavericks legends are feeling. You don't trade away Luka Dončić without a franchise-altering explanation. But Shaq didn't stop there. In another segment, the Big Diesel shifted, his focus to Luka himself. Amid all the noise, all the criticism, and all the uncertainty, how is Luka responding? Because if there's one thing NBA history has taught us, it's this. When great players feel disrespected, they come back with a vengeance. And if that's the case, the Mavericks might have just made their biggest mistake yet.